All right, I want to shift into NFL and the Lions in particular. Narrowly escape the New Orleans Saints. Look, the Lions look absolutely dominant. They come out and start that game. It's 21-0, like hot. Came real fast. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, here we go. Defense looked good. I know we'll talk about the defense. Look, they absolutely were shutting down the Saints. Turnover, 3-and-outs, like you name it. And then the game shifted and it got very, very close. You could argue that the injury to Derek Carr is maybe the difference at this point. If Jameis Winston doesn't come in and be himself, it could be a different outcome in this game. So, it depends on what side of the fence you're on, where you're like so beyond frustrated with this team that they let the Saints come back in and the game should have never been this close. Or are you on the side of just like, stop complaining? You're 9-3. It's the NFL. It's hard to win games, and you won a game on the road. Brant, I'm curious what side of the fence you're on with this team right now.
I did take the Saints with the 5.5, and I came up just a bit shy. Or it was 4.5. Sorry. Anyway, neither here nor there. I felt like this was going to be a close game, and then they came out and opened it up 21-zip. And I had a feeling at that point, because it's the NFL. Listen, you're not going to stay up by 21 points. That's just it's just not how things work in this league. So I expected it to get a little bit closer. I didn't expect them to have to pull out that final drive, just grinding out first downs. Once again, Dan moving the ball in situations through the air, which are basically getting it done. Like he's making, Ben Johnson, whoever, are making the right play calls at the right time. So they continue to impress me in clutch time, Dave. Like that's not something to be looked over. Like this team is starting to develop a clutch gene, or they have that in them. Now, that was a tough game, man. And let me tell you why. Taysom Hill's a problem. Like he was everything for them. And I get it. He looks goofy out there in different positions and doing different things, but the Saints have figured out a way to utilize him in which the Lions were scratching their heads. And Olave had a day. It was just one of those games where you wanted to escape. You just wanted to run out the clock as fast as possible. That place turned on them quickly. It got loud in there towards the end of the game. And we talked about that, Dave. That place was going to be rocking. And I think the Saints are an okay football team. That's a tough test because you have to go on the road down there. Not an easy place to play. But I thought, like the tip ball that Brian Branch, like he just happened to tip, and who was on the back end that was going to intercept that? I can't remember who was right behind him.
Yeah, you mean the one that Olave caught?
Yeah, that Jerry Jacobs. Maybe Jerry Jacobs was.
It was Jerry
him.
Jacobs. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian Branch just knocked it from him, and then it ends up in Chris Olave's hands. He's down at like the 2-yard line. It's like, oh my gosh! And when things are going against you like that, like it just is what it is. But they found a way to persevere, and that's what we keep going back to, finding a way to get this done. Dave, I got a question for you. Are you concerned about their running game at all? Like that has become I think a little bit of a bigger issue in the grand scheme of like, hey, when it's crunch time and you need first downs, they seem to be getting them through the air and they seem to be rolling the dice like every single time that they end up doing it. It's not like they can turn it around, hand it off, and be like, here we go, we're going to get 4 or 5 yards. It kind of gets stonewalled more than it doesn't.
I'm not concerned who we have at running back. Like, I think the duo of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs is actually really good. Arguably one of the best, actually, running back duos in the league. I'm concerned right now, and I know that this is like such a weak take, but I'm concerned about this offensive line, the injuries, Frank Ragnow going down, Jonah Jackson, like, we don't really know. Like, yeah, I am concerned about the run game if this O-line isn't healthy. Brant, this team was built off of, like, the O-line is the strength of this team. So when they start to crumble a little bit, or you got guys coming out, they're not deep at all. And so, yeah, you saw exactly what the Saints did. They were going to focus on the run, and they really boxed them up. And in fact, those stats are a little bit misleading between Monty and Jahmyr Gibbs. A couple of big runs broken. They really had that run game locked up, and it's a good point. Now, that offense was good enough to bail them out. I think my biggest concern and why I am getting cooler on the Lions for the first time this year, I know I've been high on them. This defense is a problem, and not in a good way. This defense is getting worse each week. Now they show glimpses of being good. The first half really against the Saints was good, but they are not deep. They are injured. You just lose Alim McNeil, goes on IR, so he's gone for at least a month. Could potentially be back for the last game of the season. That does not do Aiden Hutchinson any favors at all. Anzalone out. Like I'm very, and even without the injuries, I'm just very concerned that this defense, and kind of what I've said all year, Brant, on the podcast, is if you've got a top 5 offense, which I believe in the offense, you can make this thing work with the top 15 to top 20 defense. However, I'm not at a point anymore where I'm calling this a top 15 to top 20 defense. They may be bottom 10 to 12 defense in this league. Okay, I'm going to stop using the word top. And that ain't good. And if you are relying in the playoffs to beat the 49ers or the Eagles and go toe-to-toe and try to keep up with points with them, look, it ain't going to work. Or even with the Cowboys, it's not going to work. And so, look, yeah, you got to be grateful. Yeah, Seahawks. You got to be grateful. You got to be happy to be 9-3. I'm not saying don't be happy. Don't be not high on this team. But the current makeup and how they're winning games does not translate to postseason success. I'm getting a little bit cooler on the team in that sense. Now, on the same token, Brant, I did read somewhere. So look, I know we're going to talk lines here. Seahawks play the 49ers and the Eagles play the Cowboys. If the Eagles lose to the Cowboys, which they're favored to lose, and if for some reason, somehow, Seattle, you're talking about a divisional game, they got a lot to fight for, beat San Francisco, and you go and beat the Bears this weekend, the Lions are number 1 seed with tiebreakers right now. That puts the Niners at 4 losses, puts the Eagles at 3. Cowboys would also be right there with 3. The Lions would own that tiebreaker. Now, look, there are weeks of football left to be played, but it is crazy. It's not crazy to think that, like, yeah, that idea of them being the number 1 seed, it's still in play. And this is why it's important to just win the games on your schedule. It seems to matter in the NFL, and like it matters in college football. And look, you got to be happy where you're sitting at right now. My confidence level, though, even heading into, and this is kind of a transition into this weekend, you got to go to Chicago and beat the Bears. Give you trouble. That line's moving and not in the right direction. I think it's like 3 points or 4 or something like that, but it's moved. It was more than that. And you got to win. You got to win this game. You got to. These games come at a premium right now, and I can't stress enough that, like, we are going to learn. You learn a lot about your football team in the month of December. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's working through something. Jared Goff, Brant, in the cold weather, hasn't been it in his career. And so, yeah, we're going to find out this weekend at Soldier Field. Like, we're going to learn something about this team, and I hope we learn something good.
Can I give you a forecast for Sunday, Dave? High of 39, 50% chance of snow in Chicago. So, yeah. And I'm going to lay off Jared Goff this week for sure. Like, he made the throws at the end of the game that he had to make. And he is one of the reasons that they gutted out that win. Like, he was a main contributor in that. Didn't play necessarily top-notch, like Pro Bowl level type Jared Goff performance that we've seen in the past, maybe. But definitely well enough to get this team where they needed to go on Sunday. Now, can he back it up with a performance against an improving Bears squad, an improving defense over there in Chicago? To Chicago's credit, they haven't just folded this year. They've came out and they've played well in a lot of games. That's a tough place to go into and get a W. I would look for that one to also be kind of low scoring. I'm not sure what to expect from the Bears offense necessarily, but um, I would think that it would be on the lower scoring side of things. But um, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just gonna to say just to kind of wrap up thoughts here because I think we can talk a little bit about this in the betting
Oh
segment.
yeah,
There are two guys that I just did not want to go, and I almost just went without mentioning them. Sam Laporta looks like a top five, definitely potentially top three tight end in the league. Like I know that's crazy with like Travis Kelce and like Mark Andrews, and I know there's some guys. Sam Laporta is a absolute weapon, and he blocks too. Like what a pick by Brad Holmes. He was the heart and soul. They did everything they could to lock up Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's so good. He still found a way to get open a couple of times, score. Sam Laporta, though, man, he was the heart and soul of that offense. And another guy, because if you're going to harp on guys when they're bad, you got to give them their flowers when they're good. And you know where I'm going with it. Jamison Williams, can we get that kid the ball? J-Mo has arrived, okay? Jared Goff needs to trust Jamison Williams. He's doing the right things. His routes look better. He looks like he's where he's supposed to be. There's a couple of times that Goff is either not seeing him or not going to him. I don't know what it is, but this is what you brought in Jamison Williams for. You give that guy the ball and let him make a play. He did it on the end around. He's done it these last couple of weeks. He's blocking. He's doing everything you're asking him to do. Brant, if Jamison Williams even reaches like half of his potential that we thought he could be this year, you add in Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and a decently healthy O-line, I can talk myself into the Lions
uh,
winning some games.
I hear you. I just hope we don't have to have that conversation about Jared Goff of why he can't use Jamison Williams in certain scenarios because some of that arm strength comes back into the fold of, hey, I'm on Ross A. Brown. You don't need to have a strong arm to get him the ball. He's like open 24/7. Same with Laporta. Dude seems to be open. He can go get it for you, but you're not hitting him 30, 40 yards down the field. With Jamison Williams, it seems like more often than not, because he's so fast and he can beat defenders that way, you're going to need to drop it in the bucket and drop it in the bucket at like I said, 40 yards plus. So I hope we're not getting in that area where, man, Jameson is open a lot and Jared just doesn't want to pull the trigger because Jared's arm is not where it needs to be. That's just what I'm putting that out there, Dave.